Okay, let's unpack this because, well, it's quite something. A shoe thrown at a president. You might have seen that image from Kenya. President William Ruto, he's in Migori County. He's there launching, I think, an affordable housing project in a place called Concha. And then, wham, suddenly a shoe hits his arm. It's it's more than just a weird headline. It makes you really stop and think, what's the undercurrent here? That little 5-second clip, it's gone totally viral.
Oh, yeah.
And it just immediately throws up a ton of questions about, well, the mood in Kenya right now.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to really dive deep into this whole incident, try and understand what it signifies about the current political and economic climate there.
Right.
And guiding us through this, we've got insights from Stella Agara. She's a governance and security analyst based in Nairobi. And her expertise is going to be, well, pretty key to understanding the nuances here.
Yeah, and what's fascinating right off the bat, as you mentioned, is the location. Migori County, that's in western Kenya. Now, our sources point out this area is a longtime stronghold for the opposition leader, Raila Odinga.
Right.
He's contested the presidency several times, lost to Ruto most recently back in 2022. So, the place this happened, that might be telling in itself.
Absolutely. And the government's reaction, well, it was immediate and pretty firm. They've called the incident shameful. And we're already hearing reports of, I think, 3 arrests.
Yes, 3 so far.
And authorities are hinting at political motivations, looking for more people possibly involved. It clearly signals they're taking this very seriously.
They really are.
Now, Stella Agara, the analyst, she offers a perspective that goes beyond just, random disrespect. She kind of interprets this shoe throwing as a very stark message.
The message.
Aimed right at the president, a sign of citizen desperation, maybe, stemming from this feeling that their concerns just aren't being acknowledged.
And that really raises a critical point, doesn't it, about how people express discontent when they feel the usual channels aren't working, when they feel they aren't being heard. Now, Ms. Agara is very clear she doesn't support violence at all.
No, of course not.
But she really stresses how important it is to grasp the motivating factors behind an act like this.
Right. It's not just about the shoe itself.
Exactly. It's about what that act symbolizes, what it says about the relationship, or maybe the breakdown of the relationship between the government and the people.
It's also interesting, isn't it, to remember this isn't actually the first time a Kenyan president has faced something like this.
No, it's not.
Former President Uhuru Kenyatta had a similar thing happen, and actually in the very same region, Migori.
That's right, in Migori as well.
But, and this seems significant, it is the first time this has happened to President Ruto anywhere in the country.
And that's the point Stella Agara highlights. It's crucial. The fact this happened in a region that had previously shown him some support, that suggests a real shift, a shift in public sentiment.
Like a loss of favor.
Exactly. It hints at this growing disillusionment, maybe a perception that the president isn't really willing to listen, to, accommodate how citizens are thinking on these critical issues.
Okay, so building on that, this shift in sentiment, we need to look at the underlying causes, right? What's driving this public anger?
Well, the sources point pretty directly to President Ruto's economic policies, the ones he's brought in since taking office in 2022.
The tax policies.
Yes. There's been quite a bit of public unhappiness about taxes. We've touched on this before, I think. And these ongoing debates around the finance bills, they just keep highlighting that tension.
So the core issue is people feeling the pinch.
It seems the core grievance is that the public feels, the burden of these new taxes is hitting them hard, maybe disproportionately, without seeing clear, tangible benefits in return.
Right. And specifically things like the new social health insurance fund.
Yeah.
And that affordable housing fund and project, the very reason he was actually in Concha for that rally.
Exactly. These big flagship programs, they're intended to improve lives, but instead they seem to be fueling a lot of this frustration and anxiety.
Yeah.
But what's particularly insightful, I think, is Ms. Agara's suggestion that the fundamental issue might not even be the specifics of these policies alone, but rather President Ruto's whole approach to governing.
His style, you mean?
Sort of. It implies a broader dissatisfaction, maybe linked to how these policies are being rolled out, perhaps a perceived lack of consultation or transparency.
And she really drills down into the key concerns she's hearing from Kenyans on the ground. Top of that list, a perception that corruption is, well, escalating under this government.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And crucially, a real lack of accountability for anyone involved.
Right. No consequences, seemingly.
Then there are these persistent questions around integrity. Broken promises, projects that only seem to work when the presidential motorcade is actually there.
The Potemkin Village effect, almost.
Kind of, yeah. The strong feeling she conveys is one of lies and unfulfilled promises.
Yeah.
That's just leading to this deep erosion of public trust.
But there's one issue Ms. Agara emphasizes that's particularly sensitive, and it's really fueling anger.
Okay.
It's the deaths. The deaths that occurred during protests last year and generally during President Ruto's time in office.
Ah, right. That's huge.
It is. The public outcry isn't just about economics. There's this deep, deep anger and resentment because the president is seen as unwilling to, quote, acknowledge and genuinely apologize for these deaths.
Or hold people accountable.
Or hold people accountable, exactly. That, she argues, is a major factor driving this widespread disgust, this feeling that their pain, their loss, is just being ignored.
So, okay, when you have this level of public frustration, this hostility building up, what does that mean for Kenya's political stability, especially, thinking ahead to the next election cycle?
Well, Stella Agara paints a pretty sobering picture, actually.
Yeah.
She uses that powerful saying, when diplomacy fails, violence normally prevails, suggesting the country is really at a critical crossroads.
That's strong language.
It is. And this act, throwing the shoe, it might seem isolated, but you have to see it alongside other worrying things happening. Our sources mentioned the recent shooting of an opposition MP, for example.
Right, I saw that.
It all contributes to this wider sense of instability that's affecting everyone, not just the public, but political leaders too.
And given Kenya's history, sadly, with election-related violence.
Exactly.
The experts' concern about a heightened risk of things escalating during campaigns, during the elections themselves, well, it's deeply troubling, isn't it?
Very. And she makes the point that the government just hasn't done enough, in her view, to limit the triggers for public violence, to de-escalate things.
Yeah.
What's also quite striking is what she calls the growing audacity of citizens.
Audacity.
Yeah. I mean, throwing a shoe at a president, that's a bold act, maybe even a desperate one. But it's fueled by that deep frustration we talked about.
So people feel they have nothing left to lose, perhaps.
Perhaps. And Ms. Agara really stresses the crucial need for the government to create genuine spaces for people to voice their concerns. And just as importantly, for people to see actual, tangible evidence of accountability when things go wrong.
Yeah, accountability seems key.
It is. Her final thought really hammers this home. Accountability and integrity.
Yeah.
Those are the core challenges facing the Kenyan government as they head towards the next election. And there's this urgent need, she says, to slow down violence for everyone's safety. It's a pretty stark assessment.
It really is. So in essence, this whole shoe incident, it's not just some random disrespectful act.
No, not at all.
It's acting as a potent symbol, really, of a much deeper well of public frustration.
Exactly. And that frustration is rooted in, well, the economic policies, this widespread perception of rising corruption with no accountability.
And this feeling of just not being heard.
A profound sense among citizens that their voices, their concerns, just aren't being heard or respected by those in power.
And the fact, as you highlighted, that this happened in a region that had previously shown support for President Ruto. That really underlines a significant shift, doesn't it? And potentially a worrying one for public sentiment.
Absolutely. As Stella Agara points out, it raises serious questions about the country's future political stability.
Which kind of leads us to a final crucial question, something for you, the listener, to really think about.
Given the experts' emphasis on this need for citizens to feel heard, and crucially to see accountability, what are the different ways a society can ensure these vital elements are present in a functioning democracy? Ways that go beyond these dramatic and, let's face it, potentially risky acts of protest like throwing a shoe.
Yeah, how do you strike that balance between allowing people to express dissent, which is vital,
Essential.
and maintaining the stability needed to stop things escalating into violence?
That's the tightrope, isn't it? Finding that balance.
It really is.
Yeah.
Some really important points to reflect on there. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into what is clearly a complex and significant situation.